What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm Nicky Phenom, a singer-songwriter who has dared to dream and is now on a mission to capture that dream. I created this channel not only to share my original music, but also to document my journey and to share some of my experience along the way in hopes that it helps to inspire, motivate, and educate you and others like us so that we can grow together as artists. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys about some times that I had some mishaps occur during some of my past performances, just as kind of a reminder to everyone that shit happens, and you just gotta, deal with it, because as we all know, the show must go on. So this one particular incident, I remember we were playing in Sanford, Florida, and we were performing like a block party. And I was with Crossfire Hurricane at the time doing the Rolling Stones tribute. And in the middle of performing, I remember I was singing, and then all of a sudden just lights out, and like power shut down. It was just somebody hit an off switch, And so we're all like, of course, confused and just like, whoa, okay, this sucks. What happened? We're trying to figure this whole thing out. All the band members and stuff are looking around and just like, trying to, investigate and see if we can figure out why this happened. Well, turns out I found out the reason it happened. Unfortunately, it was my fault. So let me explain what happened here. I was having a drink, during the performance. I had a beer with me, and I sat it down on one of the speakers next to me. I used it as like a table, and I guess, I'm assuming what happened was that the bass and stuff, the vibration from the speaker was causing the cup to move over towards the edge and eventually, topple over and spill. And what happened is, was when it spilled on the, right at the connection of the wires, with the extension cords and stuff, And I'm assuming, if I remember correctly, I think that's what, ended up causing that. It's the only thing that made sense. So anyways, of course, everybody's like upset, like, why would you put your beer up there? Like, oh my God. I'm like, man, I don't know. I wasn't thinking, you know what I mean? It was a perfectly good sized table for me to lay my, put my beer at. So, and anyways, I'm in the character and all that stuff, and I wasn't really paying attention or thinking about that. But anyways, we pulled through. We were able to, I cleaned it up, and somehow it started working again, and we resumed. And you know what? It didn't affect the crowd or the audience. Everybody was still, enjoying their, a good time. And, we went on to finish that performance, and all was good, man. So, yeah, so let that be a lesson to you. Don't set your beer down on the speakers. Not a good idea. So this next incident happened over at the Hard Rock in Daytona. I was with Crossfire Hurricane, still doing the Rolling Stones tribute. And this was like our first time at the Hard Rock. This was like our biggest show to date, right? And, everybody's super pumped and super excited about this. It's a sold-out show. We're the closers, okay? And, we're getting ready to get on stage. And, I'm all dressed up and I'm ready, I'm in character, man. I'm pumped, and ready to go. And they had the radio station out there covering the show. 95.7 was the station, the Hog. And, they had the radio guy up on the stage, and he was, doing like a little speech, and then he was introducing us. And so here he is, saying, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Crossfire Hurricane, yeah. And then everybody's going, going crazy. And it was just wild, man. And I run up on the stage, and I'm grabbing the mic, and I'm, getting into character, and start me up. Da 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 da. They couldn't hear me. I could not be heard because guess what? big moment, and my mic, for whatever reason, was not working. It just, I don't remember exactly what had happened. I don't even know if it was ever even explained to me exactly what happened. It must have been something with the sound guys, something going on the sidelines, or maybe something, it wasn't even plugged up. I have no idea. We did sound check and everything before then, so I'm not sure what exactly happened or why it wasn't working, but it wasn't. And it was such a bummer, man, because I'm having my family there and they're recording this, and I'm thinking, man, this is going to be a really cool, video of the radio station introducing us, and then me running up on stage and doing my thing. And what a great way to kick it off with "Start Me Up," as the opening song. And so anyway, man, it's like I said, it was a bummer, and but my thing was, stay in character. If something like that happens, you just keep it going, because the show must go on, and you still got a job to do, right? So anyways, I just kept singing, and eventually, a short while into it, they were able to fix the problem and they got it working. But that little short time, man, it felt like an eternity, But hey, thankfully we pulled through, and the rest of the show was a complete success. It was still one of my most awesome experiences, having done that show at the Hard Rock. So let that be a lesson to you guys. Before you go on stage, make sure they can hear you. Your mic's hot and it's on and you can be heard. This next incident happened when I was performing with Silver Gun Superman, which was a Stone Temple Pilots tribute band that I had put together. And, I was super pumped about this. This was like our debut. And we're on a pretty good, a pretty nice stage with a pretty big crowd. We're opening for another band, okay? So anyway, we had a pretty good crowd going, nice place. And, I'm super pumped, right? We're all murdered out, we're in the black, and I'm in character, and I already got in this, in my head how my performance is going to go, and changing outfits and all. It was going to be cool, man. Like I said, I was pumped. And anyways, when I get on there from the get-go, man, the sound wasn't right. Now, I guess I got to mention that I was wearing, for the first time, I was using in-ear monitors, because that was recommended to me by my guitarist. He's like, yeah, man, you can hear yourself a lot better if you're wearing in-ears. You don't get, your sound doesn't get drowned out by other instruments and stuff like that. You can just pick up your sound directly into your ear, and it'll help you to stay in tune a little better and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm a singer that kind of struggles with singing, sometimes. So any advantage I can have, then that sounds like a heck of a good idea to me. I'm all for it. So I was wearing the in-ear monitors. The only thing I don't like is the string that kind of hangs, and it connects. I hate all that stuff. But anyways, I thought it must be a good idea. I'm going to go ahead and use it and see what happens. And when we did sound check, everything was fine. It sounded pretty good to me. I don't know. And I had used them during rehearsal, and everything was fine. But man, as soon as the show starts, I don't know what happened. We had hired this supposed to be a badass sound guy who had worked with other big bands before. And, he told us, I think it was like $100. He's like, yeah, just give me $100, because he was already working that night anyway. He's like, yeah, give me $100. I'll make you guys, sound like gods, So we're all pumped up. We're like, yeah, all right, we got this great sound guy. This is our debut. Like, we're going to blow people away. Man, it ended up being a terrible show. In fact, it was the worst show that I had ever put on. And, mind you, I had never had a bad show before that night. And then, yeah, it ended up being a very embarrassing thing. So here's what happened. I could not hear myself once the show started. And because I couldn't hear myself very well, not that I couldn't hear myself at all, but I couldn't hear very well, it caused me to start singing out of tune, because I couldn't tell if I was in tune or not. And I'm not a natural singer where I can just kind of wing it and it's going to sound good regardless. Like, I'm that kind of guy. I need everything to be as it should. so that I can, sing the way I need to sing and perform, put on a good performance. So I'm freaking out a little bit on stage because I'm realizing I can't hear myself, and my wife's in the crowd, like filming, right? And she notices something's not right, and she's trying to give me hand signals, like to let me know that, hey, you need to sing higher, higher up, because you're out of tune right now. You're a little too low. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm actually using her as a guide, right, to know how to adjust my voice. So, man, I think we sang like 4 or 5 songs as the opening band, and I think maybe when I went back and looked at the video recordings, I think maybe 2 of those songs I was in tune. But yeah, it was terrible. It sucked so bad. I remember being so upset after that, going home that night. I was like, oh my goodness, like it just looked bad, I looked like one of those guys who look badass, and then as soon as I open my mouth to sing, it's like everybody's like, ah. What I mean? There's nothing worse to me than, singing out of tune. I mean, I don't ever want anybody to have to hear me like that. It's a very embarrassing thing. But hey, it is what it is. I kept it going because that's just who I am. Once the show starts, it's go time, baby, and the show must go on. So all I could think about was that I was ready to get back up there again, have a second chance, and redeem myself. And luckily, all was forgiven, and we went on to perform some more shows after that, and they were all good. They all turned out to be successful shows. So, anyways, there's another lesson for you, I guess. I mean, I feel like I did everything I was supposed to do. We did the sound check, and everything sounded good. It checked out, man. But just as a reminder to you guys, before you get up there, make sure you do a proper sound check and make sure everything's working properly and sounds the way you want it to sound. Because believe me, you don't want what happened to me to happen to you. All right, guys. Well, that's it for this one. Thanks for hanging out and listening to my stories. Hopefully you guys were able to maybe, learn something or have some kind of takeaway from that. And whether or not I taught you something from that, maybe something you didn't already know. If you did already know these things, well, then maybe you can just use these stories as a reminder that, you're not always going to have a perfect show. Sometimes, bad things happen, and you just got to learn to deal with that. It's not the end of the world, okay? It's just, these things happen, and, like I said before, the show must go on, and you got to stay professional about it and, do your job up there. That's all, and that's all you can do, right? Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so we can keep this going and continue to support each other as artists. And if any of you guys out there have any crazy stories, mishaps, problems that happened on stage while performing similar to mine, please be sure to leave those down in the comments and share them with me. I'd love to check those out. It reminds me that I'm not the only one that this crazy stuff happens to. And so with that said, we've come to the end of the video. Before we go, let me remind everyone, as always, to keep rocking, follow your dreams, and believe it can happen.